State's attorneys Areva Martin and Mark Haushalter. So a little confusing here because they're talking about a mandatory minimum sentence, and yet it's apparently not mandatory because he doesn't give them all 25 years.
It's absolutely mandatory. He's playing God. He made a decision that he was somehow sympathetic to this perpetrator, and rather than follow the law, he just ruled in a way that he chose to, he saw fit based on what he believed to be the background. His statements about the guy didn't stalk the little girl, but somehow he became aroused, and making that somehow different than a perpetrator that follows someone and commits the same heinous act is just reprehensible. And I'm outraged by this sentencing.
You're not alone. I mean, there's a huge grassroots campaign now to get this judge ousted, and now these 3 supervisors are calling for him to resign. What's the legal course of action that they have here to get the judge out? What would it take to have the judge
Well, first
recalled?
of all, I just want to comment a little on this judge. Right now, the judge is trying to use the Constitution to back his position, saying it's cruel and unusual punishment, and that's why he didn't impose the 25 years to life sentence. Again, we're not privy to all the information the judge has in front of him, and to sit here and second guess him is easy to do. But remember, this is a court of law, not the court of public opinion, and we don't want to have all of a sudden the media get involved with what we don't know and impose a mob mentality on the judge. The judge wants to be impartial. We want an impartial judiciary, so all of a sudden it's not controlled by the district attorney's office, it's not controlled by the media, and he makes those tough calls.
Really
but Mark,
we may disagree on that.
Well, let me disagree with you.
Okay.
Okay. The California Penal Code decides what the sentencing should be for these types of crimes. And if he disagrees with it, then write to his legislator, change the law. But he doesn't get to sit on the bench and decide that he's not going to impose the maximum sentence, the minimum maximum sentence that the California Penal Code prescribes for this type of crime.
He deemed it unconstitutional.
And you know what? Does supersede state law.
It is a question now for the Court of Appeals, and if they want to, they can remand it.
It's not about him deeming it unconstitutional. He is charged with following the California state law as it relates to this kind of crime. And to sit there and to suggest that this little girl deserves anything less is reprehensible, and it's outrageous. Those county supervisors did the right thing, calling for his resignation. And think about the case in Montana where that judge last year gave a rapist who committed statutory rape 30 days. So what are men saying about the value of women's lives, about the value of young girls' lives when they impose these kinds of sentences? I think it sets back the rape culture 20, 30, 40 years.
We're talking about the Constitution, though.
What's the purpose of a minimum sentence if a judge can decide to, is it just a suggestion?
It's not a suggestion. It is a mandatory sentencing guideline that must be followed by the judge. Now, he can decide 25 to life that he wants to give him more than a 25, but what he can't do is reduce it below the minimum that's required by the California Penal Code, and that's what this judge did. That's why activists should be outraged and demand his resignation or recall him.
This judge tried to follow the Constitution as he saw fit, and what he did is said, this is cruel and unusual punishment, and did not apply it. It is a question now for the Court of Appeals. Our hearts always go out for the victims of crime. However, this is a question for the Court of Appeals and how the judge acted, not the court of public opinion, not this mob mentality going after the judge. We want an impartial judiciary.
I don't know how it gets to be a mob when you're talking about a 3-year-old girl that was molested, that was sodomized.
It is becoming politicized in a way.
Absolutely.
What's political about asking a judge to follow the law, to do his
job,
Bobby?
What about the
Constitution?
Constitution?
Not just elect him out and wait till the next election and just...
Why do we have to wait for him to do his job? He was elected to follow
I have an answer for that. We call it due process, the law.
Due process allows us. We're allowed under the law to do a recall. We can ask him to resign, or we as citizens have every right to demand that he does his job, and when he doesn't do his job, then get out of the job.
Exactly, and that's why we have the Court of Appeals to remand, and if it was improper, then the Court of Appeals can come in. Not two attorneys talking on TV and the mob coming in.
It makes for great television.
It does make for great television.
Mark.
I'm standing up for the 3-year-old.
Yes, you are.
Yes. Well, I don't think Mark is against the 3-year-old.
I am not against the 3-year-old. Our heart always goes out to the victims.
All right, Areva, Mark, thank you so much. A judge ordered